Now, we will discuss a topic called codification of law and evolution of judiciary in India. See, when we discuss evolution of judiciary in India, we generally mention the concept of Nyaya, the concept of Dharma, and this concept of Nyaya and concept of Dharma can be traced back to the religious scriptures like Vedas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Smriti literature. So, when we talk about judicial system in India, we generally refer to this concept called Nyaya or Dharma as perceived by Hindu jurists. We also appreciate the development of Mughal period in the development of Indian judiciary, and who can forget Sher Shah, right? During his short period, he attempted to establish justice in every place. Then Akbar regulated administration of justice on fairly liberal lines without any bias, and Akbar has been quoted by historians saying, "If I were guilty of unjust act, I would rise in judgment against myself." So, when we talk about Indian judicial system, we must talk about Dharma system, we must talk about Nyaya system, we must talk about the contribution of Mughals, right? And when we talk about the codification of law, why not, you can say, the sutras, the Smriti literature, and then why not, right, ordinances of Jahangir and Fatwa-e-Alamgiri. But the British rule in India was responsible for the development of the common law based legal system in India. So, generally we start our story of Indian judicial system in the context of British period, British rule in India. As you all know, that East India Company was established, you can say, in the beginning of the 17th century. And in 17th century also we have some development of judicial system. If you have heard about the Admiralty courts, the Collector's court, right. So, these were some of the important courts, and they had the authority to decide both civil and criminal matters. And these courts of Admiralty and Collector's court, they, you can say, derived their authority from, right, the East India Company. And then in 18th century, there was a charter, 1726 charter, and this charter marks an important development in Indian legal history. And 1726 charter forms the basis for the establishment of Crown's Court in India, right. And 1726 is also important for the development of a new concept called Mayor's Court. The company was also granted charter to establish Mayor's Court in Madras, Bombay and Calcutta, right. And Mayor's Court were not courts of the company, they were the courts of the King of England, and the court consisted of a mayor and 9 aldermen. And the Mayor's Court contributed significantly to the formulation of a uniform pattern of judicial functioning in India. So, Mayor's Court is very important in the evolution of Indian judiciary, right. Now, when we say Mayor's Court, whether successful, no, there were some limitations of Mayor's Court, right. There was no clarity regarding the applicable law. In several instances, the mayor courts annoyed the natives by applying the principles of the English law, completely disregarding their personal laws and custom, right. And therefore, you will see the Mayor's Court, the concept was rejected, right. Jurisdiction was restricted to suits of the value of our 5 pagodas. In Madras, the Chaltry courts existed to decide cases up to value of 20 pagodas. In Calcutta, the natives were subjected to the Jamindar's court. So, you will see that there was some criticism of the mayor court, right. Now, in this period, there was some experiments, but overall the Mughal system, the judicial system continued. What we have to remember that the situation totally changed after 1765, after Treaty of Allahabad. I hope you all are familiar with those development in Bengal in 18th century, Battle of Palasi, Battle of Buxar, and then Treaty of Allahabad. So, situation totally changed after 1765, and after 1765 there was a dual rule 1765 to 1772, and then Mughal system, right, was followed in both civil and criminal justice, but the East India Company was not ready to take the responsibility of judicial system also. They were more interested in extracting revenue, right, and this led to what? This led to, you can say, confusion, and because of this confusion there was what? Regulating Act of 1773. So, Regulating Act of 1773 was the first attempt at creating a separate and somewhat independent judicial organ in India, and section 13 of this Regulating Act empowered the Crown to establish by charter a Supreme Court of Judicature at Fort William, Calcutta, and Sir Elijah M.P., a distinguished English barrister, was appointed as the first Chief Justice. Right. Now, after 1772-73, you will see a new development in Indian judicial system. Many historians, many political scientists, they tried to analyze the evolution of Indian judiciary into, you can say, two phases. Try to understand it. They try to appreciate this development of Indian judiciary in two phases. First phase 1773 to 1864, and second phase after 1864 till 1947. So, we must understand the evolution of Indian judiciary in two phases. First phase 1773 to 1864. 1773 Act should be remembered as the beginning of the process, and the process continued till 1864. And in first phase, we have to remember how development or evolution of Indian judiciary, we have to remember the contribution of Warren Hastings, contribution of Cornwallis, contribution of, you will see, Bentinck, William Bentinck, and contribution of Lord Canning. So, when you say first phase of development of judiciary in India, we have to appreciate contribution of Warren Hastings, Lord Cornwallis, William Bentinck, and Canning, right. Warren Hastings, during this period you will see the beginning, and therefore, we generally consider Warren Hastings as the, you can say, the originator of the concept of judiciary, right. Organized judiciary, I indicated that judiciary or justice system was not the contribution of the British period, but yes, organized. There was a hierarchy of court. So, during Warren Hastings period, each district was to have two courts, one civil court, or you can call it Diwani Adalat, and a criminal court called Faujdari Adalat. So, Mughal nomenclature was retained, and laws to be applicable were Muslim laws in criminal justice and the Muslim or Hindu laws in adjudicating personal matters. Are you getting it? So, now in the Warren Hastings period, there was a hierarchy of court, and there was a kind of, you can say, right, the organized judiciary system started developing, right. And 1773 Act, as I told you that there was already a Supreme Court, and then there was, after Diwani and Faujdari Adalat, there was Sadar Diwani and Sadar Faujdari Adalat, right. So, there was appellate court also, and then the code of 1781 prescribed special or specific rules and regulation to be followed in all the civil courts down to the lowest level, and all the judicial orders were henceforth to be in writing. So, this kind of laws developed. Then one more development during this period was codification of law. Two important point here. We have to remember that during Warren Hastings period, a digest of Hindu laws were compiled in 1775, and a code of Muslim laws was also compiled by, you can say, 1778, right. So, codification of Hindu law and Muslim law, right, was also one of the important achievement during this period. So, Warren Hastings period can be considered as the beginning of proper judicial system in India. Then the process continued during Lord Cornwallis period 1786 to 1793. One important development during Lord Cornwallis period was what you call Cornwallis Code, and Cornwallis Code is known for what? Separation of power. Now judicial independence, if you can use this term. So, Cornwallis Code of 1793 is very important for development of independent judiciary, and then there was one more experiment during Lord Cornwallis period, what you call Court of Circuit Court headed by European judges related to criminal matters, right. And then one important limitation of this period was there was a total exclusion of Indians from the whole system. One more important development, right, during this period was what you call concept of Recorder's Court. The 1797 Act authorized the Crown to issue a charter to establish Recorder's Court at Madras, and in 1800 the British Parliament passed an act empowering the Crown to establish a Supreme Court at Madras in the place of Recorder's Court. And in the case of Bombay, the Recorder's Court continued to function till 1823, but after that you will see it was also, right, abolished, right. So, concept of Recorder's Court was also one of the important experiment during Cornwallis period. And then the major development was probably Indianization started, right, in Lord Bentinck's period 1828 to 1835 Act. And during Bentinck's period, Charter Act of 1833 threw open judicial positions to Indians, and most important, it provided for the appointment of a law commission for codification of law. This is very important development. And law commission appointed under Lord Macaulay completed the task of codification by 1837. But it had to wait until revolt of 1857 for full implementation, right. And then after Lord Bentinck period, in the Lord Canning period, you can see major development regarding codification, right. Lord Canning's period is important for codified law. For example, the Code of Civil Procedure was introduced in 1859, the Indian Penal Code in 1860, and the Criminal Procedure Code in 1862. So, codification of law was also complete, you can say, right, till 1862. So, overall when you say phase 1 of your evolution of Indian judiciary, this phase 1 of evolution of Indian judiciary is all about the experiments of William, you can say, Bentinck, experiments of Warren Hastings, experiments of Cornwallis. And in this phase, if you can analyze two major development, one was the important Dharma Shastra texts were compiled, right, and they were translated by various British administrator scholars like William Jones, Colebrook, Sutherland, right, then Borodell. So, some important, you can say, scholars contributed in this codification process. And one more development was that the court pundits were used in the British courts, right, in this period to aid the British judges with the interpretation, right, of religious texts and implementation of the classical law, right. So, these two important development in the you will see in the first phase, right. Second phase started when? Second phase started after 1864. And what happened in second phase? In second phase, you will see departure from that Dharma Shastra tradition, and now the British adopted the modern law or the English legal system and replaced the existing Indian laws, except for laws related to family or personal matters, right. Now, the concept, the system of the court pandits, right, it also ended, and you will see that in this period the British administrators undertook studies and compiled the diverse customary rules practiced among different communities. And always remember, these customary rules were consultative resources for the courts, right. And then in this phase 1861 Act helped a lot. 1861 Act provided for the abolition of the Supreme Court of Judicature and the Sadar Diwani Adalat and the constitution of the High Court of Judicature in their place, you can say, in the three presidency towns Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. So, in the second phase of the judicial development, you will see High Court where in the three presidency towns Calcutta, Bombay and Madras, and in 1866 a fourth High Court was also established at Allahabad, right. Then the chartered High Courts remained as the highest court in India till 1935 Act, till the establishment of the Federal Court of India under the Government of India Act 1935 Act, right. So, 1935 Act established, provided for what? Federal Court in New Delhi, and after that you will see that it became the highest court. And during this period the Privy Council in London acted as the highest court of appeal. And always remember that the Privy Council served as a bridge between the Indian and the English legal system. And after India attained independence, the jurisdiction of the Privy Council was abolished, right. And you can say that there was a transition from this federal court to the present the Supreme Court of India, right. And the original Indian constitution, as you all know, that it envisaged a Supreme Court with a Chief Justice and 7 judges, while empowering the Parliament to increase the number of judges, right. And subsequently the Parliament increased the number of judges, right. So, this development till independence we have to remember, and overall we have to remember that Indian judicial system, of course there was judicial system in ancient India, judicial system in medieval India, and then judicial system during British period. In British period, development of 17th century, development of 18th century, and in 18th century after 1773 Regulating Act, there was an organized development. Warren Hastings contributed a lot in creating a hierarchy of courts in India. What exactly was the hierarchy? Right, Diwani Adalat, Fauzdari Adalat, Sadar Diwani Adalat, Sadar Fauzdari Adalat, and then there was a Supreme Court. Then this hierarchy continued with some experiment. Right, experiment was circuit court during Cornwallis period. Later this circuit court experiment was abolished during Bentinck period, and the process of Indianization of judicial system, right, of course introduced during Lord William Bentinck, and the codification also continued, and the codification you will see, right, in 1859-60s, right. So, during Canning's period also the codification, and then after 1864 you will see the establishment of High Court, and then 1935 Act, Federal Court. After independence you have Supreme Court, High Court, and then subordinate courts. Thanks a lot.